Hello, everybody. This was the scene last night at the State of the Union that you do not get from your mainstream media. They don't show you. Yeah, I know. Outside the State of the Union, they don't show you this part that Joe Biden was forced to take his motorcade was forced to take a different route to the Capitol because for some odd reason there is a certain number of Americans that don't like genocide. It's unclear why, but they chose to block his route, demanding an end to the genocide against the Palestinian people, and they succeeded. They did not stop him from getting to the State of the Union, but they did force him to take a different route.
For people listening to this and not able to watch, it's a bunch of protesters blocking, I believe it's Constitution Avenue, which is between the Capitol and the White House. There's a ginormous Palestinian flag. I see some of the folks with like the "Not in Our Name" shirts, so like Jews against Israel. And this is a really, really rad protest that, as Lee pointed out, blocked the typical and the easiest route to Congress to deliver the State of the Union address. So really rad action.
Yeah, excellent action, folks. And obviously, I've been bringing to you on this live stream many of these days, various people, bird dogging Congress people, demanding an end to this genocide, getting in their faces, causing them to get pissed off, which I'm always a fan of when you could get Congress people to lose their minds. Nancy Pelosi almost punched Medea Benjamin, so that was fun to watch. So, yeah, everybody just getting in their faces and doing all they can to interrupt business as usual. Anyway, this is Common Censored. I'm Lee Camp. This is Eleanor Goldfield with me, as always, the always amazing Eleanor Goldfield. And this is also a podcast. If you want to check it out there, please click thumbs up, click share. We are going to bring you a bunch of stories and a bunch of things that have gone on in the past few days, but we will start off with some things that were said at the State of the Union, which if you actually like analyze Joe Biden, his past, and all of that, he spent a lot of time in the State of the Union, which has been called apparently very good. Everyone's like, oh, he did such a great job. He spent a lot of time saying he's going to solve the problems that Joe Biden created. I mean, honestly,
please tell me it was up there. Like, I know this guy, and I'm gonna fix what he did.
Yeah, there was just a photo of him. There was just a photo of him behind him that.
Oh wow! And they dragged Kamala Harris out too. That's nice.
Out of her bunker, yeah, that's right. And let's see, let's try that one. So yeah, he gave a speech, and I just wanted to read some sentences from his State of the Union because I'm not going to play any of it because nobody can put up with that. If you watch this thing, you have more power than I will ever have to get through torture. It's amazing if you did it. But I'm just going to read some things that were said. Don't get ahead of me. Don't read the script. I'm going to read some things that were said and just get your thoughts. Here's one thing that Joe Biden said. Overseas, Putin of Russia is on the march.
Putin of Russia, as
Putin of Russia.
Putin of
Putin of Russia, not Putin of the pudding cup. Putin the pudding cup.
Putin of Kansas is on the march. What?
Yes, Robert Putin in Topeka, Kansas. Putin of Russia is on the march, invading Ukraine and sowing chaos throughout Europe and beyond.
And beyond?
And beyond.
Isn't that like the Buzz Lightyear catchphrase?
Yes, I'm Buzz Lightyear sowing chaos in Europe and beyond. No, but I love that this is like a perfect description of the United States. Sowing chaos in showing chaos in Europe and beyond is the United States. The United States, the proxy war in Ukraine would not have been created. I mean, wouldn't have happened without the U.S. sowing chaos. And in fact, as I've covered multiple times, the New York Times even admitted last week that the CIA was in the woods of Ukraine, building bases and arming fellas on the border of Russia years before 2022. That's the New York Times that said that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's remarkable. Sorry. I'm like looking at the little thing and like who are these people? And why
you don't need to know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like I don't really care, but yeah. Also, can I just say how much, like, I know that they didn't mean to do this, but the fact that everyone's also wearing white makes it look like a KKK rally, which is very apt. But like,
Why were they wearing white?
So apparently they were wearing white for reproductive justice, which I think it would be hilarious if it weren't also so twisted and dark that women are getting cesarean sections without anesthesia in Gaza. And you dare to fucking wear white in honor of reproductive rights. Like, you absolute pieces of shit human beings. It's just like, wow, it is absolutely disgusting. But that is supposedly why they were wearing white. And even if there wasn't a genocide in Gaza where things like that were happening, you could have codified Roe v. Wade into law, I don't know, like any time during the past 50 years, but you chose not to. So also F you on that front. On any of the fronts, from here to Gaza, you are pieces of shit.
Well, and I put the Roe v. Wade statement, one of his Roe v. Wade statements. That was one of the big themes of the night. I put one of those in here because Joe Biden could have stopped it. So again, this is Joe Biden versus Joe Biden. Many of the things Joe Biden said he was going to fix, or he's working on, or is happening last night in the State of the Union was created or allowed by him. He was incredibly powerful in the Senate for years and did not codify Roe v. Wade, just allowed this to happen.
He also has been quoted as saying, I don't believe in this whole my body, my choice concept. Like, that's a quote from Joe Biden.
Yeah.
So to suggest that he cares is ridiculous. Also, because if he did care, he could have actually done something about it a lot of times already.
He said, if Americans send me a Congress that supports the right to choose, I promise you I will restore Roe v. Wade as the law of the land again. Yeah, you had one for years.
Yeah.
For years, they had one where they could have codified it. He also said, just this morning, Sweden officially joined NATO and their prime minister is here tonight.
Yeah, the prime minister of Sweden was there, which, yeah, I have so much to say and nothing to say. That man's a piece of shit too. In case you were wondering, Ulf Kristersson is an absolute piece of shit and a remarkably corrupt individual. Just like if you just look at the span of his career, it's like just corruption after corruption after corruption. And then because Sweden is trying to emulate the US as much as it possibly can, he's now been rewarded to the tune of becoming prime minister of the entire country. And it is very twisted what he's doing, not least of all joining NATO.
And some of what I'd call is happening in Sweden is the gravity of capitalism. That is, yes, there are areas in several in Scandinavia, but there are areas around the world where capitalism has been restrained somewhat more. There's a better safety net. You don't have to worry that you're going to be homeless one day like we have here in the United States. However, the gravity of capitalism slowly erodes all those things, slowly allows for the chopping down of the forests and the polluting of the rivers, et cetera, et cetera. And that's where the gravity goes. Even if you slow it down, even if you get in the way, even if you put up some hurdles and some trip lines, it's still going to get you there one day. Here's another quote. He said, America's comeback is building a future of American possibilities, building an economy from the middle out and the bottom up, not the top down, investing in all of America and all Americans to make sure everyone has a fair shot and we leave no one behind.
What word salad is that? I can't even comment on that
really?
Because that was like a Mad Libs.
It moved me. That really moved me.
It moved my bowels. I don't know how to comment on that. How do you comment on that?
Well, you could say one thing, which is he said, leaving no one behind. They have left millions of people behind. Not just him, of course. Him, Trump, Congress, all of them. It is one party that is all about enriching themselves. And that is why they've left millions and millions of people behind. It's why millions of people have gone bankrupt because of health problems. It's why millions of people have lost their homes, have had their lives destroyed. It's why 1 million people are living in tents or on the street right now. Like, leave no one behind. And again, he's been in office for 4 years. So if you didn't do the leave no one behind till now, what makes us think, oh, tomorrow he's going to leave no one behind?
I also feel like it was one of those things where some speechwriter got high and was like, dude, it'd be really cool if we did like from the middle out and the bottom up. You hear that? Like how I'm playing with like different areas and different geographical
From
concepts.
and it starts
It's
in the
like
middle and then it
in
goes
the
out
middle,
your
and then it goes out.
and then it goes out your bottom.
Yeah, and then up.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, that's
Yeah.
so cool. And then like that just made it. That just stayed in the speech.
I mean, I'm sure some of the people watching read the Rolling Stone article about how the Trump White House was awash with Adderall and Xanax and everything else. So, and apparently they have a White House doctor that just walks around handing it out like Pez. So it wouldn't surprise me if you're right that there were some drugs involved.
But like Adderall, I feel like makes people sometimes at least focus better. But this sounds like somebody was just like handing out like laughing gas or some shit. Like,
here's another one. Removing poisonous lead pipes, Joe Biden said, so every child can drink clean water without risk of getting brain damage.
he's saying that's a thing that somebody who's responsible would do.
He's saying that's a thing he's going to do.
Right.
He
okay.
just hasn't gotten to it yet. He figured 4 years of brain damage was okay. And now he's getting ready to stop children from having brain damage from the lead pipes that they easily could have fixed and easily could have put money towards, I don't know, 10, 20 years ago.
50. Do you know what this reminds me of? It reminds me of like the Miss America speeches where they they'll say that they want to work towards world peace, but once they've already done the the stuffed animal giveaway at the local mall, they only have 2 days left for world peace. That's what this sounds like. Like Joe Biden's been spending most of his time handing out teddy bears at the local mall. And now he has like 2 months left for world peace, which he doesn't really care about that much anyway. So he's just going to have an ice cream cone.
Yeah, or another example would be they've spent all this time and money and effort and everything creating genocide in Gaza, but they did just drop 5 boxes from an airplane, which killed either 2 to 5 people. There's differing accounts, but they dropped food that killed people. But that's all they had time for and money for left over after creating genocide for 154 days was those 5 boxes of food they dropped. He said, we've seen record investments in tribal communities.
So that might not be untrue depending on what you mean.
If you go
so
from
like
$0 to $5.
No. But like, so for instance, they've started mining uranium in the Grand Canyon because that's a good idea. And so that's investment, right? That's a project that requires, I don't know, like 5 or 10 jobs, maybe. So that's quote unquote investing.
Yeah.
So it's like, this is also the issue is that you could take comments and statements like he's making and say, well, that's not technically untrue, but what do you mean by that? Right? Like, what do you mean? Like he could say we delivered aid to Gaza, and technically that's not untrue because you did drop, 5 boxes of Cheerios to the people that you're simultaneously genociding. But it's like if you don't have the context of this, then those statements are useless.
They sound better, yeah. They sound like just a really great thing. Someone's asking whether the food killed people. Yes, yes. Several of the parachutes apparently did not open. And when I say boxes of food, these are giant pallets of food. So if they hit someone, they would absolutely kill them. And apparently several of the parachutes did not open, which killed. I've seen some reports of 2 people, some reports of 5 died from U.S. food drops. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if IDF shot the parachutes, but either way, people died from these food drops. Thank you so much, Damaris, for the donation. You guys keep the show going, and your donations, your super chats are really important. So thank you so much for that. You can also donate without any percentage being taken away on Venmo at Lee Camp.
But also, like the other thing is, you wouldn't even necessarily need to drop the aid if you just let the aid trucks in.
Yeah,
there are hundreds of aid trucks waiting to get into Gaza, and the U.S. is like, I don't know, maybe we'll just drop some sandwiches on people. It's like, why? Just because of the PR? That's why.
Yeah, and somewhere in the speech, I can't find the quote this second, but I had it in here about one of the big things he said was that the U.S. is going to create a pier, a dock in Gaza, off Gaza, which there used to be until Israel bombed it years ago. But the U.S. is going to build one to bring food into Gaza. Now, a few things. One is Sure, okay. But again, you're sending bombs while you're building a dock to receive food. How about just stop sending the bombs? There'd be one thing that would help a lot of people, I feel like. The other thing is, as you're saying about the food trucks getting in, the reason the food trucks haven't gotten in is because of Israel. Now, the U.S. can get Israel to do anything they wanted if they actually meant the threats, if they actually said to them, you let this food truck in or we're not sending you bombs anymore and we're not going to have your back when Hezbollah attacks you. There are a million ways and billions of dollars that the U.S. gives Israel every year. There's a million ways that the U.S. could stop Israel from doing these things, but they don't. By the way, Joe Biden, in case you were wondering, when in his time in the Senate, #1 recipient of all senators, I believe of all time, from Jewish lobby. There's various Jewish lobbying groups. AIPAC's the most well-known, but there's others of Jewish lobby money. So he is more paid by the Israeli lobby than any other senator, congressperson at all.
Somebody in the chat just said Operation Token Gesture. Totally.
Absolutely.
Totally.
We are the kings of token gesture, man. Thank you so much, Ankh, for the donation. We are a superpower, but we can't convince our closest ally to allow us to deliver humanitarian aid to Gaza. Yeah, not so superpower. No, but the truth is they could convince them if they actually made a real threat as opposed to the bullshit threats. He also said in the State of the Union here tonight is UAW President Sean Fain, a great friend and a great labor leader who you did not support as they were fighting for a better contract. Like, Joe Biden was, MIA when the UAW was fighting for a better contract, for higher wages, etc. It's not like Biden was out front the picket lines with them. Thoughts?
I agree.
Okay.
I see that, like, you have so many notes. I'm worried that we're not going to get to other topics, so I want you to keep going.
Well, I'll skip. He said, with a law I proposed and signed and not one Republican voted for, we finally beat Big Pharma. Finally, he was able to beat Big Pharma. He said, instead of paying $400 a month for insulin for seniors with diabetes, you only have to pay $35 a month. And now I want to cap the cost of insulin at $35 a month for every American who needs it. Wow, those are great ideas. Here's another idea. How about universal health care?
Yeah,
How about capping all medication? Why is it just insulin? Oh, only people with diabetes, they're really struggling. The people who need cancer meds, don't worry about them. To me, the whole capping of insulin just serves as a good example of why it should be done with all medications, not just fucking insulin. But again, token gestures, we're really good at them. He said, starting next year, that same law caps total prescription drug costs for seniors and Medicare $2,000 a year. Anyway, it's all these band-aids on like, you instead of paying this much, you'll pay that much. We're not going to give you universal health care. We're the only industrialized country that doesn't have it, but we're going to keep fighting against that. But we have a lot of band-aids. Man, do we have band-aids to give out? Oh, do we? He said, I know the cost of housing is so important to you. If inflation keeps coming down, mortgage rates will come down as well.
You create inflation.
Yeah, they created and allowed inflation. But
yeah, inflation is not a naturally occurring phenomenon like mushrooms. It's
like mushrooms.
Like it doesn't just like sprout from the ground like, ooh, inflation. Like, it is created by the system. And
one of the reasons, for multiple reasons, one is corporate greed, but another is that during the pandemic, they increased the U.S. monetary supply by 20% by sending $4 trillion to Wall Street. He said, now past my plan to build and renovate 2 million affordable homes and bring those rents down. So
you have 16 million vacant homes.
Yeah.
By the way,
there's 16 million empty homes in the United States that people are just like, it's mainly held by investment firms, but it's held by a lot of people, but just because people own 3-4 homes and don't live in them. He said, look, I'm a capitalist. If you want to make $1 billion, great. Just pay your fair share in taxes. Joe Biden was like, look, I totally endorse this system that is destroying everyone's lives, but, exciting.
Also, what has he passed that has to do with corporate tax rates? Like, what has he passed that has
He
made the
said
rich?
I don't keep track of the nitpick of this stuff, but
He
he said they did something that made it so that corporations couldn't pay zero taxes. They had to pay like 8% or something.
Nope.
I haven't seen it, but
Yeah, neither of the corporations. They are continuing. They continue to be subsidized to the tune of billions of dollars. It's just all lies.
He said, "Oh, this is my favorite. This is perhaps my favorite. This wins for me." He says, "Imagine a future with affordable child care, so millions of families can get the care they need and still go back to work and help grow the economy. Imagine a future with paid leave because no one should have to choose between working and taking care of yourself or a sick family member. Imagine a future with home care and elder care, so seniors and people living with disabilities can stay in their homes. All of these things should have been done decades ago while you were leading Congress and doing none of it.
Mhm.
None of it. In fact, if anything, it's gone the other way. All of a sudden you're going to give these things. And again, the reason these things don't exist, the reason you don't have paid sick leave and you don't have all these things is because capitalism. It's how it works. It will slowly degrade anything that is beneficial to the worker. Sometimes slowly, sometimes fast, but all of these things were fought really hard for, 100 years ago or 80 years ago. And now they've slowly been chopped away because that is the gravity of capitalism. That's where it goes. All right, let's end with one more good one. Oh, okay. Here's the one on Gaza. Tonight, I'm directing the U.S. military to lead an emergency mission to establish a temporary pier in the Mediterranean on the Gaza coast that can receive large ships carrying food, water, medicine, and temporary shelters.
Mm-hmm.
No U.S. boats. So we're giving Israel the bombs to blow up the shelters, and then we're shipping in shelters. No U.S. boots will be on the ground. This temporary pier would enable a massive increase in the amount of humanitarian assistance getting into Gaza.
Just let the trucks in, you piece of shit.
And stop the bombs. Stop sending bombs.
Yes, but even if we're just talking about aid, it's like the U.S. is not the one giving the most aid, but they want you to think that and completely ignore the hundreds of trucks of aid that have been waiting for a long time.
Yeah, so anyway, most of Biden's speech was actually trying to fix things that he's either created or allowed throughout his presidency, throughout his 900 years in the Senate. And for saying he was going to do each of those things that he's not going to do, he was thoroughly cheered. Thoroughly cheered.
Well, and this is the other thing that I like. So, okay, I'm just going to go ahead and say that I like these segments. I think are good in terms of breaking down what was said, but they're ultimately pointless because at the end of the day, here's the takeaway, and it takes less than a minute to explain. State of the Union is a campaign event where whoever's president at that moment gets to stand up and basically jerk off in front of the entire nation and say how great they are and how wonderful they are. And you listen to it and you get to decide whether you think that their jerking off actually causes change or if you really read it as just jerking off. So it's up to you, my fellow Americans, to decide whether you think that the State of the Union is some bullshit or if it's legit. And I think at this point, if you're watching this or listening to this, you realize, oh, it's some bullshit. So honestly, don't listen to the State of the Union. Don't pay attention to this because it's not, it will not change your lived experiences at all. What they're hoping is that you buy into it enough to accept that your lived experiences don't have to change, because all you have to do is believe that someday they will change as long as you vote for that person. That's all it is.
So next topic, would you like to get to AI being used by Israel or another one?
You're the keeper of the tabs.
Yep, just let me know what you'd like to do next. We got it.
I don't know. Pick
okay,
one.
Here we are.
So we've shared things from Visualizing Palestine in the past. They do great work Visualizing Palestine, and they create these graphics that you can share that also like just break things down really well. For folks listening and that don't have the visuals, you can just take a look at visualizingpalestine.org. The one that I'm reading from right now is Israel's use of AI-driven warfare, automating genocide. And I wanted to share this because there are a lot of conversations about AI and, oh, well, it's stealing this person's art or whatever. But also, AI is at the forefront of genocide and murdering people. So that's super exciting. And this, of course, goes back to the idea that any tech that is created in this country or with regards to our allies like Israel is created first and foremost for the military industrial complex. You know, the internet was the same thing, computers were the same thing. So recognizing that that's the same when we look at, the new frontier of tech, which is AI. So basically, the Israeli military uses AI to surveil Palestinians, places like Gaza. Gaza's an open-air prison, or was an open-air prison before it was an open-air genocide concentration camp, basically. And it basically, they've used it. It's the most surveilled place on the planet. And they use AI to surveil Palestinians to generate targets for airstrikes and organize military logistics at an unprecedented speed, using undisclosed algorithms. So, as one head of the Israeli military's digital transformation unit put it, he said, "What used to take hours now takes minutes. With the same amount of people, we do much more, as in we cause much more pain and suffering, and in this case, genocide." Israel's use of AI has created a quote-unquote mass assassination factory of AI-driven automated warfare and genocide. So when we talk about the numbers of murdered that Israel has killed, almost 30,000, or at this point I think it's beyond 30,000, right?
It's over 30,000, but it's nearing 31,000. But that doesn't count those under the rubble who are almost definitely dead. So it's that estimate is 39,000.
Right. So basically, something that has helped with this is this AI generated quote unquote mass assassination factory. And of course, it's worth noting that it's not that difficult in a place like Gaza that was so densely populated. But with the advent of AI, it becomes even easier to literally just like sit from afar and press buttons and thereby kill the most amount of people at any given moment. And so again, this isn't like even without AI, what Israel has done is despicable, but it takes on an extra layer of horror and terrorism when you realize that they can use AI to find places that are most densely populated to target, which they've done, to target specific people, be they journalists or poets, or people who had bigger followings online. They use the AI to be even more, I can't even think of a good word, like even more horrific, depraved in this genocide. So,
and they use it to avoid accountability. So they can say, they can basically say these targets were chosen by the system. It wasn't any specific person. And let's say, some acclaimed, like gets global attention that an acclaimed poet or something was assassinated with a bomb. They can go, well, we didn't make that decision. It was just the system did it.
Right. And to your point, that's another thing that they say on this report is that AI obscures accountability for decision making and target selection away from individuals and military hierarchies into a diffuse, anonymous system. And this is important because, as we are seeing with the ICJ and potentially the ICC taking up this issue of Israeli genocide, like the Nuremberg trials, it was very simple. It's like, hey, you there, we have documentation to prove that you were the one who came up with, whatever happened at Dachau or Auschwitz or whatever. But it's like, here, there is this ability, and you better believe it, they will use this. This idea that like, well, I didn't know. How was I supposed to know that it was targeting kids? It must have been a glitch in the programming of the AI. I mean, I had no idea.
Right.
So it creates this ability to just push away that accountability.
And in terms of what's going to be done in the future and where we're headed right now, so they have these programs. The one people have been talking about the most is the Gospel, which apparently picks the assassination targets. But it does need to be approved by someone that the button to push the bomb is then pushed. However, they can get away with it, be unaccountable by saying, look, I was just doing what the program told me. But we are very close to the next step where the system just chooses to assassinate someone and then fires the bomb themselves. And that is quickly where we're heading. And it's terrifying. I mean, it's terrifying now as is. You've got genocidal people pushing buttons on assassination targets that were picked by a computer program that was, created to assassinate the best and brightest in a society, the tops of hospitals and the journalists, etc. But another step would be this system just does it all itself and just murders people.
Well, it has a source from the Israeli military's Targets Administrative Division said it really is like a factory. We work quickly and there's no time to delve deep into the target. The view is that we are judged according to how many targets we manage to generate. So literally, like, the more people that you manage to kill, the better it looks. And according to what's known as the Dahia Doctrine, Israel's military strategy includes deliberately targeting civilian infrastructure. And we knew this, right? Like, I'm not telling you anything you didn't know. But the interesting thing here is that AI is used to generate lists of what so-called power targets. That includes residential high-rises, universities, public buildings, in order to kill the most amount of people and target the basic elements of Palestinian society and civic life. So this is the context of genocide in the modern age, and I think it's important to understand that the AI that Israel is using is making this horrific genocide all the more possible.
Yeah, it's a bright new future, isn't it, folks? To have all this amazing technology right at our fingertips. Very exciting to see how far we've come. When I was growing up, no one dreamed that we'd have computers picking who to assassinate. No one dreamed.
You used to have to just look for them yourself.
You just a pair of binoculars on a hill.
Yeah.
Where are the journalists so I can murder them? Yeah. You want to stick on Israel, or can we do this article? Go over this article you wrote for Truth Out.
You're the keeper of the tabs.
I don't know why you're not allowed to have an opinion. It's International Women's Day. You're allowed to have an opinion.
Oh, I need to cover that.
Let's
do
that. Let's do that.
Okay, so I don't have slides to share, but I wanted to share some quotes. Now, the beginning of International Women's Day, there's several ideas of how it started. Some say it was started by socialist organizers in 1909, I believe. Some people say it was started because of a strike that happened in the late 1800s. So however you think it started, it obviously started because of leftist women organizing. But I wanted to share something because International Women's Day, just like anything with regards to women, gets co-opted by liberal feminism, or what some people call
not Black History Month, though. That one,
that's
pure.
That is pure
and untouched, and changes everything. Every Black History Month, everything changes for Black people in America.
Oh yeah,
I don't mean that.
So or liberal or white feminism, as it's known, and Koa Beck wrote a book called White Feminism. And she states that white or liberal feminism refers to a type of feminism focuses exclusively on white middle-class women and prioritizes issues that primarily affect them. International Women's Day. It's also often referred to as girl boss feminism. As the focus tends to be on equality and empowerment gained through capitalist means. For instance, calling for an increase in the number of female CEOs. And growing hustle culture.
If we can ever get ahead of the Pentagon, who's a woman, I feel like that'll be the moment we've really achieved something.
It's a feminism that prioritizes achieving equality for white women, insisting that their equality will open up doors for all other women. So this is like the Hillary Clinton type, I'm a feminist, pussy hat wearing dumb shits. And this is not feminism, right?
Hold on, those hats. I saw a big difference before
Yeah,
and
right?
after. Before and after those hats.
Yeah. So and as Koa Beck also points out, a hallmark of many grassroots movements shunned by white feminism or liberal feminism across multiple and intersecting identities is that they put forward collective rights before an individual's progress. And this, of course, clashes with the very idea of American exceptionalism, American individualism. And so the idea that Women's Day is somehow tied to women getting more money or women being better CEOs or whatever, it's like, that is not what feminism is. Feminism has to be inextricably separate from capitalism. Otherwise, it's not feminism, because capitalism demands the oppression of people, including women. So how could you possibly be feminist and a capitalist at the same time? And so in that sense, real feminism is imagining and fighting for a world without any domination. And this also then gets into ideas of anarchism or ideas that don't include these hierarchies, that include the patriarchy, right? Any systems of oppression, whether they be capitalism, colonialism, patriarchy. The idea of true feminism is therefore to do away with all of these systems of domination. And as Bell Hooks, who is was a total rad human being, wrote, feminist thinking teaches us all, especially how to love justice and freedom in ways that foster and affirm life. And in that, also recognizing that feminism is not just a struggle against domination, but is an affirmation of life. It is an affirmation of justice and an affirmation of what women do as life nurturers and bringers. So recognizing that aspect of it as well, that women are not just oftentimes like the spearheads of struggle, but are also all like the people who build and affirm life. And I also want to just take a moment to recognize.
Hold on. I just want to highlight. So this is from The Guardian. This is photos of women protesting around the world today. The only reference that I saw, at least scrolling through this quickly, was to Gaza, where women are obviously being murdered every day. This is in London, women holding up ceasefire now and flowers, but it's so hard to read that I think that's why The Guardian was like, we can say we covered the ceasefire.
Right.
We can say we covered Gaza in such a way that most people aren't even going to notice what it was.
And of course, with regards to what's happening in Gaza, as I mentioned, women are giving birth and having C-sections without any anesthesia. Of course, war is terrible for all living things, so that would necessarily include women, right? And that is something that is not included in this liberal feminism or the white feminism that Koa Beck mentions. And with that, I also want to highlight, because people have pointed out, things like, oh, we talk about the women and children in Gaza. It's like, do the boys and men in Gaza not deserve to live? Because I feel like they do. And here, Bell Hooks has also much to teach us. I also recommend folks read The Will to Change, which is about how patriarchy affects boys and men, and how our job as feminists and women is to include that boys and men in our understanding and analysis of the patriarchy. She writes, a male who has divested of male privilege, who has embraced feminist politics, is a worthy comrade in struggle, and in no way a threat to feminism, whereas a female who remains wedded to sexist thinking and behavior infiltrating feminist movement is a dangerous threat. So, yeah, we have to recognize that boys and men are not the enemies, and boys and men are a vital part of our society. And therefore, when we talk, I've always felt that the women and children, the trope is like, so we just automatically feel that boys and men, like, or I mean, I guess if kids, you're saying that boys, but like, like that men don't deserve to live. Like, I want the men in Gaza to also grow old and to also like have life, and like that is part of feminism.
With Gaza, I generally have avoided saying women and children when I'm talking about those being killed in Ukraine, etc. Because in some of these places, like women, there are female troops in the U.S. military. So to say women and children, they killed women and children, didn't make a lot of sense. But I have talked a lot about how many women and children have been killed in Gaza. And the reason for that is because there are not really any Hamas militants who are women. So when you say women and children, you're saying absolutely innocent civilians. So then the 30% that are being killed that are men, some may be Hamas militants, some may not be, plenty are not. But that's the reason that I've started using the term when it comes to Gaza, is because unlike the U.S. military, it's not like there's a lot of women Hamas militants.
I don't believe that Hamas militants should be carpet bombed either.
No, I don't.
I'm not saying that you.
I don't believe it anyway, but I'm trying to talk to people in a way that clearly and quickly defines how many we know are instantly innocent civilians, without even a debate as to like, oh, well, how many Hamas did we get? Like,
yeah, but my point in bringing it up is to say that on International Women's Day, as much as I feel that the focus should be on women and the struggles that are inherent in being a woman, I think we also have to recognize that, if you're a white woman on this day, like I am, you have to recognize your place of privilege compared to almost all other women who are non-white in the world. And also, therefore, recognize that our place as women is on a spectrum of privilege that also, therefore, includes men and boys. And so my place as a white woman in the United States is much higher on that privilege scale than like a man in Gaza or a man in Congo. It's like I have to recognize that spectrum, and that is part of the recognition and the analysis of real radical feminism. So on today's International Women's Day that gets co-opted to pussy hats and fucking the girl boss bullshit, I want to take a moment to say F that. And true radical feminism is breaking down domination of all kinds and justice and liberation for all.
Lee quietly takes off his girl boss t-shirt. Oops.
Pulls down the pussy hat.
Awkward. Thank you.
You're such a good feminist.
Thank you. That was an excellent analysis, and I truly appreciate it. I don't want to run out of time
Jesus,
for.
Don't do that to me.
Sorry for those because you guys couldn't tell. Joe Biden popped up on our screen.
That's terrifying.
Where'd it go?
What are you looking for?
I'm looking for your Truth Out article.
Well, maybe you closed that tab.
I did.
You did.
All right.
That's actually the first tab that you closed. I thought you were. That was like, that's what she thinks about International Women's Day.
Goodbye. All right. Well, when you start talking about it, I'll pull it up again.
Okay, so
Eleanor just had an excellent Truth Out article that everyone should read, but we're going to chit chat about it anyway.
So I wrote this piece for Truth Out because there is also on the topic of connecting issues, there has been an increasing war on the unhoused. And this is in the predominantly with criminalization of homelessness bills, as in like you can't, they call it camping, but it's not, it's being unhoused. And so criminalizing
camping sounds way too fun.
Dude, but that's like, again, like this euphemistic language.
Yeah.
Also, just a note on unhoused versus homeless. I use the term unhoused or unsheltered because it highlights that the issue is that not that these people lack a connection to a home place, right? But rather that they lack something that can be very easily systemically addressed. A house, a shelter. This is a physical thing that is lacking. A home is kind of abstract, right? Like, oh, you don't feel home? Oh, well, maybe that's just your problem. But unhoused, unsheltered is very specific. And this also has predominantly been very important when discussing the issue of unhoused in indigenous communities. Obviously, they don't lack a connection to this land. The problem isn't that. The problem is the colonialist issue that has caused them to be unsheltered.
So Eleanor will use the term unhoused. I still use homeless or sidewalkful.
So. Sidewalkful?
Yeah.
Okay. What about park benkful?
Park benchful. Yeah.
Although with the spikes and that they're putting on, all these surfaces, you can't even.
I once did a segment. There's a term for it. It's like discomfort architecture or something.
Yeah.
Literally a term for something that's done intentionally. This is not like one guy was like, I'm putting spikes on my bench. Like they have discussions inside city councils and shit about discomfort architecture. And it's things, it's the pigeon spikes for humans, where they put the spikes down on the ground so that humans won't lay there. It also is the slanted benches, which we had some of those where we used to live in DC, so that you can sit there for like a few seconds before your ass starts to hurt.
That's the thing. It's like, it's not even comfortable for like anybody.
No, it's for like seconds. It's like seconds and you move on. And then another one that I remember covering is the mosquito noise that they'll do downtown. Much. For those of you who don't know about this, have you ever been like in the downtown of a city or something and you hear a like light, like I used to think it was some sort of machinery inside the buildings or whatever. No, they put that up intentionally because it doesn't bug you that much if you're walking through, but it will drive you nuts if you're staying there. So it's meant to make people move along.
Move on. Yeah. So basically the kind of the thesis of this article is that everyone reading this or watching this, you're likely 1 or 2 emergencies away from being unhoused. And if you're not, then you have a much better safety net than the majority of Americans. And so the criminalization of homelessness, the criminalization of not having access to housing in this country is a problem that affects us all because our relationship to housing is so tenuous. And therefore, our relationship to legality is very tenuous. Yeah. And that should make us question what it means to criminalize homelessness and what it means to criminalize the ability to address that, like criminalizing bail bonds, criminalizing, those who have bail funds. What does it mean to have this this pipeline or this revolving door where unhoused people are several times more likely to go to prison and go back to prison over and over and over again because they are not able to access services or jobs or housing once they get out of prison. So understanding these interlocking forms of oppression and how we are like, no one is immune. No. And I use a little bit of my own experience in the article so that people understand that you probably know someone who's been unhoused. You probably know someone you definitely know someone who's been on the brink of being unhoused. You know, it's like we have this way of looking at being unhoused like it could never happen.
Totally know someone who lives with their mom and is like, I gotta get the out of there. I can't. But they can't afford to get out. I mean, that's pretty close to unhoused.
So, and also like the way that we talk about it, the way that corporate media talks about it, you know, they're always talking about like, oh, so-and-so won the lottery. You are way more likely to get like bitten by a shark than you are to win the lottery, but you are very likely to be unhoused at some point. But we don't think of it that way, right? Because we think like, oh, well, I'll just work hard and I'll become a millionaire. No, you won't. Like statistically, no, you won't.
Yeah. Or something happened, even if you're doing fine, something happens to you that's out of your control, such as getting cancer, which I think it's like 1 in 3 Americans will have at some point. And 50% of everybody who gets cancer, their entire savings is knocked out. Mm-hmm. That's with insurance. With or without insurance, their entire savings is knocked out. So something like that happens to you and it completely changes your circumstances. And that's how our system works.
Yeah. So basically that is the kind of the thesis of the article. You can find it at truthout.org. But again, like I know I harp on this a lot on the show, but it's like it's really important to recognize the interlocking mechanisms of oppression. Yeah. And I didn't get into it in the article because I don't have time to go through all of the things that are related to this, but it's like it is a clear connection of why we don't have access to basic services and a safety net at home, and why we're also like the empire is also flailing and causing genocide in Gaza and trying to, you know, take over basically the entire world and be kings of the graveyard. That is inextricably linked to our inability as people who live in this country to access basic needs.
Thank you so much. I'm the captain for the donation. You guys keep this show going. And speaking of that, we are going to do a few more stories over at rumble.com/Lee Camp. It's free to watch there, as well as my locals page, rumble.com/Lee Camp. So join us over there. We have more to come. Don't miss it. Free to watch. So why would you not? Also, I live stream 4 days a week, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. You might not get the alerts even if you click subscribe. So just show up. Just join us 4 days a week. I'll be here. You should be here.
I have a great segue.
Oh, Well, I want the great segue, but I also realize some people are not going to run over to Rumble. So I want to say also check out Eleanor's article. You can get all her stuff at artkillingapathy.com. Now, awesome segue.
Okay. So my segue is connecting issues. So, obviously the genocide in Gaza is horrific for